Turn your Bibles to 1 Peter chapter 5. And he's writing to the elders. And elders in the New Testament are pastors today, the equivalent of pastors. The word pastor is only used one time in the entire New Testament. So anytime you see the word elders, he's talking about pastors. And Peter says that he's also a pastor, and he's an apostle, but serving as a pastor. And he says, shepherd the flock of God, verse 2, so we know it's clearly talking about pastors, serving as overseers. Then he says, in verse 7, and this is a word for anybody in authority, anybody who's responsible. Pastors happen to be responsible. But verse 7 says, casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. And boy, that's a deep, deep verse. It's an amazing verse, actually. Casting has to do with rolling. So it's rolling your cares upon the Lord because he cares. If you care, that's all you need to know, that he cares. If you care, then he cares. If it's important to you, it's important to him. If it affects your life, it affects his life, and he cares. He sees it. He's into details. I mean, he's the one. Jesus gave us the revelation that God actually counts the hair on our head in incredible detail, consistent detail. He didn't count your fingers, didn't count your arms or your legs, because we don't tend to lose those very often. But our hair, we lose every waking moment. Hair is coming in and hair is going out. It means his care for us, his interest in us is constant. And so he says, cast your cares. Well, the word care here is anxiety. It's the same idea as what we read in Philippians 4. But it's also it's a special kind of anxiety that comes with responsibility. So when you're the one who feels responsible for something, you feel a tendency to worry with that because you feel like you're responsible. And a good pastor just feels responsible for the sheep and for the church, but in reality we're not responsible, but we feel it because we're the ones who have to work with it. So, but there is a chief shepherd. If you look in verse 4, and he's ultimately responsible for people's growth. He's responsible for finances. He's responsible for providing everything that we need. And so there's a sense where we're taking on a responsibility that's truly not ours, which always creates anxiety. So if you're feeling anxious about a particular thing because that's your ministry, it's what you're working with, you probably have to go back and get refocused and say, Lord, it's your ministry. They're your sheep. They're your people. And you need to take that responsibility that you're carrying and lay it back down at his feet. There's a sense where you're actually making him responsible for what he really is responsible for. But it's a mental challenge for you to do that, where you say, okay, Lord, I've been carrying this. I feel it in my body. I feel it in my neck. I feel it in my lower back. I'm feeling anxious for these people or for this situation. You really are the one who's responsible. You can carry it. It doesn't hurt you. When I take it, it hurts me. So Lord, I'm rolling it back on to you, making you responsible. When you make him responsible, one thing about the Lord that you learn is he doesn't forget anything. Nothing falls through his fingers. Nothing is forgotten. He won't take it, put it on the shelf, and then neglect it. He's not negligent. He's not careless. So when you roll it over into his big hands and you say, Lord, I leave it with you, and I ask you to take care of this, he does. He does. And he will in ways that completely surprise you. But it's in verse 7. The context is for those who are in ministry. I think because we deal with it the most, this whole chapter is aimed mostly at ministry. But we all struggle with it. And it's a pretty universal problem. If you're a parent, you feel responsible for your children. Well, it's an amazing thing to turn around and make your Heavenly Father responsible for your children, and ask angels to be babysitters, and ask angels to watch over them, and go to the Lord and say, Lord, you've got mighty angels. Would you assign them to what I care about? And it's a powerful thing. So it's a way of dealing with anxiety, is recognizing that it has to do with a false sense of responsibility on one level. On another level, it's making him responsible for what you feel responsible for. Amen?